Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm pumped for this one. Today, we're going to dive deep into the story of Amazon, the company that started with just books, and now it seems like they sell just about everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And, of course, you can't talk about Amazon without talking about the man behind it all, Jeff Bezos. Our guide for this journey is the biography One Click, Jeff Bezos and the Rise of Amazon.com, and trust me, it is a wild ride. We're talking about going from a tiny startup, like in a garage, to a global giant. And Bezos's unique personality is woven into every step of that journey.
That's right. I mean, it's a story of ambition, risk-taking, and just like relentless innovation. But what's really interesting is how much of Bezos's early life seems to foreshadow the creation of Amazon.
Okay, so paint a picture for me. What was young Jeff Bezos like?
Well, imagine a kid who devours science fiction, builds a solar cooker in his parents' garage, and spends summers taking apart and fixing farm equipment on his grandparents' ranch. That's basically young Jeff Bezos in a nutshell. He was always tinkering, always curious, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
That's amazing. I mean, you can almost see the seeds of Amazon being planted right there with
Yeah.
that problem-solving mentality and
Yeah.
drive to create things.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about building things. Bezos also had, like, a natural talent for leadership. In high school, he started a program called the Dream Institute. And he taught younger kids about physics and space. He even managed to convince his high school principal to let him give a graduation speech.
Wow, so he was always comfortable being in the spotlight, even back then. But what about his formal education? How did that shape him?
Well, Bezos went to Princeton, one of the top universities in the country. He started as a physics major, but then switched to computer science because, as the book tells it, he wanted to be in a field where he could excel.
Oh, interesting.
And he did excel. He graduated with honors
Yeah.
and was immediately recruited by top Wall Street firms.
Okay, so he had this incredible academic foundation and a promising career path in finance. So what made him decide to risk it all and start an online bookstore?
That's where things get really fascinating. Bezos was working at a hedge fund called 𝐂𝐋𝐈𝐂𝐊 when he was asked to research the potential of the internet. This was back in the early 90s, when the internet was still in its infancy.
Right.
But Bezos was just blown away by what he saw. He realized that the internet had the potential to revolutionize commerce, and he wanted to be a part of it.
So it's almost like he had this aha moment, right? Like a glimpse into the future of how we buy and sell things. But why books? Out of all the things he could have sold online, why choose books as the starting point for Amazon?
That was a strategic decision based on a few key factors. First, the book market was huge and relatively fragmented, meaning there wasn't one dominant player.
Oh, okay.
Second, books had this existing infrastructure of ISBNs, which are unique identifiers for every book published. This meant that Bezos could easily create a searchable online catalog of millions of titles.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the ISBN system provided a ready-made framework for organizing and selling books online. But still, leaving a lucrative Wall Street job to start an online bookstore, I mean, that must have seemed crazy at the time.
It was a huge risk. But Bezos had this unique approach to decision-making that he called the regret minimization framework.
Hmm.
Essentially, he would project himself into the future and ask himself what he would regret more, taking the risk or not taking it.
So he was thinking long-term about the potential regrets he might have later in life. And in this case, he realized that he would regret not taking a chance on the internet more than he would regret leaving his job.
Exactly. And that's how, in 1994, Amazon was born. Bezos, along with a small team of early employees, set up shop in his garage in Seattle and started building the website that would eventually become the e-commerce giant we know today.
No, why Seattle? Was it just because that's where he happened to live at the time?
Actually, there was more to it than that. Bezos had very specific criteria for choosing Amazon's headquarters. He wanted access to a talented pool of software developers, a favorable tax environment for online sales, and proximity to a major book distributor's warehouse. Seattle fit the bill perfectly.
That's fascinating. So he was already thinking strategically about logistics and cost optimization, even in those early days. So tell me more about those early days. What was it like working at Amazon in the beginning?
Well, the book describes it as a scrappy, all-hands-on-deck kind of environment. The team was small, the resources were limited, and everyone was working incredibly long hours to get the website up and running. They even had this running joke about the CC Motel, which was basically a cot set up in the office for people who were pulling all-nighters.
Wow, that's a far cry from the sprawling corporate campuses Amazon has today. So they launched the website, they had their books. But how did they actually convince people to start buying books online? This was before online shopping was commonplace. People were still pretty wary of giving out their credit card information over the internet.
That's a great point. Bezos and his team had to overcome a lot of skepticism and fear in those early days. To address those concerns, they came up with some innovative features for the website. For example, they created this gentle ordering process where customers could enter just the last few digits of their credit card online and then call in the full number later.
Oh, that's really clever. It shows how much they were focused on making customers feel comfortable and secure. But what about attracting customers in the first place? How did they get the word out about Amazon?
Well, they were one of the first companies to really embrace online advertising. They ran banner ads on websites, partnered with other online retailers, and even sent out email newsletters to potential customers. And their ads were really clever. They focused on highlighting the vast selection that Amazon offered, something that traditional bookstores simply couldn't match.
So they were leveraging the unique advantages of the internet to reach a wider audience and offer a superior customer experience. And it worked. Amazon's growth in those early years was explosive.
Exactly. And that rapid growth brought its own set of challenges. Bezos had to quickly scale the company, hire new employees, expand their warehouse space, and constantly improve their technology to keep up with the increasing demand.
It's like they were building the plane while flying it, constantly adapting and innovating to stay ahead of the curve. But one thing that remained constant was Bezos' focus on the customer. He was obsessed with providing a seamless and enjoyable shopping experience.
And that customer-centric approach is a big part of what set Amazon apart from the competition. It wasn't just about offering the lowest prices or the widest selection. It was about building a relationship with the customer based on trust and convenience.
So they were laying the foundation for what would become Amazon's reputation for exceptional customer service. But as Amazon grew, they also started facing competition from established players, right? Like Barnes& and Noble and Borders, who are finally starting to take the threat of online retail seriously.
That's right. The battle for dominance in the book market was heating up. And Bezos knew that Amazon had to keep innovating and expanding to stay ahead of the pack.
But before we dive into how Bezos took on those challenges and reshaped the entire book industry, I think we need to take a closer look at his leadership style. What was it about Bezos' approach that allowed him to build such a successful company? And how did that style influence the culture at Amazon? That's a great question, and one that I'm sure a lot of people are curious about. So let's unpack that after, no break. We'll jump right into part 2. All right, so we're back and ready to kind of delve deeper into the leadership style that shaped Amazon. You mentioned Bezos' focus on the customer, but what were some of the other key elements of his approach?
Well, one of the most, well-known aspects of Bezos' leadership is his emphasis on data-driven decision-making. He's famous for saying, if you can't feed a decision with data, then it's just a matter of taste. This means that at Amazon, gut feelings and intuition kind of take a backseat to hard numbers and rigorous analysis.
So it's not just about having a hunch or a good feeling about something. It's about backing up every decision with solid evidence. That sounds intense. Did this data-driven approach influence the company culture as a whole?
Absolutely. It permeated every level of the organization. Employees were encouraged to experiment, to test different ideas, but always to measure the results and learn from the data. This created a culture of constant iteration and improvement, where failures were seen as opportunities to learn and refine their strategies.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like failure wasn't stigmatized at Amazon, but rather seen as like a necessary part of the innovation process.
Exactly. Bezos has often talked about the importance of embracing failure as a learning opportunity. He believed that if you weren't failing occasionally, then you weren't taking enough risks.
Okay, so data-driven decisions, a tolerance for failure. What else? The book also mentions something called the 2-pizza rule. What's that all about?
Yes, the 2-pizza rule. This is one of Bezos' guiding principles for team structure. He believed that teams should be small enough to be fed with 2 pizzas.
Wait, so the size of a team is determined by how much pizza they can eat. That's different.
Well, there's a deeper logic to it. Bezos believed that small teams are more agile, more focused, and more likely to come up with innovative solutions. Larger teams, on the other hand, tend to get bogged down in bureaucracy and groupthink, which can stifle creativity.
That makes sense. By keeping teams small and focused, you can encourage more direct communication, faster decision-making, and a greater sense of ownership over projects.
Precisely. And there's evidence to suggest The two-pizza rule actually worked. Many of Amazon's most successful products and services, like Amazon Prime and Amazon Web Services, were developed by small, tightly knit teams.
That's really impressive. It seems like Bezos had a real knack for creating the right environment for innovation to flourish. But let's be honest, his leadership style has also been criticized for being demanding and intense. There are stories about employees working incredibly long hours
Yeah.
and facing like immense pressure to meet Bezos's high expectations.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that with the positive aspects of his leadership?
That's a fair point. There's no denying that Bezos is a demanding leader.
Yeah.
And the work culture at Amazon has been described as intense, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's also important to note that Bezos set those same high standards for himself. He was known for working just as hard as anyone else in the company. And he expected his employees to share his passion for innovation and customer obsession.
So it wasn't just about pushing people to their limits for the sake of it. It was about leading by example and inspiring everyone to strive for excellence. But that kind of intensity can't be for everyone, right?
Definitely not. And there have been criticisms of Amazon's work culture, particularly in recent years. But it's important to remember that this is a company that has consistently pushed the boundaries of what's possible in e-commerce and technology. And that kind of innovation often comes at a price.
Yeah, it's a complex issue with no easy answers. But it's clear that Bezos' leadership style, for all its strengths and weaknesses, played a significant role in shaping Amazon's culture and driving its success.
Absolutely. And speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't talk about Amazon's innovation without mentioning the Kindle. This was a pivotal moment for the company and for the entire publishing industry.
Oh, yeah, the Kindle. It's hard to believe that it's been around for as long as it has. It completely revolutionized the way we read. But what was Bezos' vision for the Kindle? Did he always believe that ebooks would eventually replace physical books?
Well, Bezos is famous for saying that physical books had a great 500-year run. He saw the potential for digital books to offer a more convenient, affordable, and accessible reading experience. And he was determined to make that vision a reality.
But e-readers weren't exactly a new concept at the time. Other companies, like Sony, had tried to launch e-readers before, but they hadn't really caught on. What made Bezos think he could succeed where others had failed?
Bezos had a few key advantages. First, he understood the importance of creating a seamless and enjoyable reading experience. He knew that the Kindle had to be lightweight, easy to use, and have a display that was as close to paper as possible.
And that's where e-ink technology came in. It was a game changer for e-readers. Can you explain a bit more about how it works and why it was so revolutionary?
Sure. E-ink is a type of display technology that uses tiny microcapsules filled with black and white particles. When an electric field is applied, the particles rearrange themselves to create the desired text or image. The result is a display that looks and feels remarkably similar to paper.
So unlike traditional LCD screens, which can be harsh on the eyes, e-ink provides a much more comfortable reading experience, especially for like long periods. And I remember how impressed everyone was with the Kindle's battery life. You could read for weeks on a single charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was another key advantage of e-ink. It's incredibly energy efficient because it only uses power when the display is refreshed.
Right.
This meant that the Kindle didn't need a bulky battery, which made it much more portable.
And of course, the Kindle also had the advantage of being connected to the vast library of books available on Amazon. You could literally download any book you wanted in seconds. That was a huge selling point for me personally.
It was, for many people. The convenience of having a whole library at your fingertips was undeniable. But the Kindle success wasn't just about the technology. It was also about Bezos' willingness to challenge the status quo and shake up the entire publishing industry.
Now, that's something I wanted to dig into a bit more. The book mentions that Bezos had some pretty intense battles with publishers over ebook pricing. What was that all about?
Well, Bezos believed that ebooks should be priced significantly lower than their physical counterparts. He argued that the lower production and distribution costs of digital books justified lower prices for consumers, but many publishers disagreed. They feared that lower ebook prices would cannibalize their print book sales and devalue their content.
So it was a classic clash between the old guard and the disruptor. Bezos was willing to upend the traditional publishing model in order to make books more accessible and affordable for readers. But publishers were understandably concerned about protecting their revenue streams and the value of their intellectual property.
Exactly. It was a complex issue with no easy answers. But Bezos, true to his nature, was not afraid to use Amazon's market power to get what he wanted. He even went so far as to delay shipments of certain print books from publishers who refused to agree to his ebook pricing terms.
That's a pretty bold move. It shows how determined he was to shape the future of digital publishing.
It certainly does. And while his tactics were controversial, there's no denying that Bezos' vision for affordable ebooks ultimately benefited consumers.
But the Kindle success wasn't just about low prices. Amazon also invested heavily in creating a user-friendly platform and a vast selection of titles. They even started their own publishing imprints to acquire and publish books directly, further disrupting the traditional publishing model.
Right. And let's not forget about the Kindle's impact on independent authors. The Kindle Direct Publishing platform gave authors a way to bypass traditional publishers and reach readers directly. This created a whole new ecosystem for self-published authors, many of whom achieved remarkable success.
So the Kindle was not only a technological innovation, but also a cultural shift. It changed the way we read, the way books are published, and the way authors connect with their audiences.
And it all goes back to Bezos' vision and his willingness to take risks and challenge the status quo. But as we've seen, Bezos' ambition wasn't limited to just books. He had his sights set on much bigger things.
That's right. Amazon's expansion beyond books is truly remarkable. From cloud computing to grocery delivery to original content production, they've become this sprawling digital empire.
It's amazing to think how far they've come from those humble beginnings in a Seattle garage. But as Amazon's power and influence have grown, so too have the questions and concerns about their impact on the world.
That's an important point. The rise of Amazon has raised a lot of questions about competition, consumer privacy, and the future of work.
Exactly. And these are questions that we need to grapple with as Amazon continues to shape the way we live, work, interact with the world around us.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but I think we've laid a good foundation for understanding the key factors that have contributed to Amazon's phenomenal success.
I agree. We've seen how Bezos' leadership style, his focus on the customer, his willingness to embrace risk and innovation, and his relentless pursuit of growth have all played a role in shaping Amazon into the behemoth it is today.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to shift our focus from the past to the future. What does the future hold for Amazon, for Jeff Bezos, and for the world that they've helped to create?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And one that we'll jump right into part 3.
All right, so we're back. And I think ready to really dive into the future of Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen how Amazon got to where it is today.
Yeah.
But I think the more important question is, where are they going?
Yeah.
And how will that impact, well, everything?
Exactly. And I think one of the most obvious areas where Amazon's influence is being felt is, well, retail, right?
Right. The growth of e-commerce, I mean, a lot of that is thanks to Amazon. And that's led to the decline of traditional brick-and-mortar stores.
Yeah.
It's really transforming the landscape of our towns and cities.
Yeah, and it's hard to deny how convenient online shopping is, but we also got to think about the impact on local businesses and that sense of community that you just don't get online, you know?
Absolutely. And it also makes you wonder about the future of work, right? Like, as automation and AI become more common in Amazon's warehouses, what happens to all the people who work there? And in delivery and customer support, I mean, these are millions of jobs.
It really is a complex issue. I mean, on the one hand, Amazon has created so many jobs. But on the other hand, you're right. There's a real concern about job displacement.
Yeah. And we can't forget about algorithmic bias. How do we ensure that these algorithms are being used fairly in hiring and employment?
It's a lot for society to figure out. Like, how do we prepare people for the jobs of the future? How do we make sure the benefits of all this new technology are shared fairly?
It's going to be a challenge, for sure. And it's not just jobs either. Amazon collects so much data about us, our shopping habits, what we look at online, even our physical movements with Alexa and all that. And it raises questions about privacy, right?
Yeah. I think that's a big concern for a lot of people. What are they doing with all that data? How do we know it's being used responsibly?
We need to talk about this more as a society. Like, where's the line between convenience and privacy in this, digital world?
And we have to hold companies like Amazon accountable to make sure they're using our data ethically.
Couldn't agree more. But it's not all bad, right? I mean, you have to give Amazon credit for their investments in renewable energy. And, they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint. Plus, we've got some pretty impressive philanthropic initiatives.
That's true. Amazon could really be a force for good in the world. They definitely have the resources and the brain power to tackle big problems like climate change and inequality?
It really depends on the choices they make and the choices we all make as individuals, right?
Yeah.
We have the power to decide how we use their platforms and how we hold them accountable.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so interesting. It's not just about looking back at the history of Amazon. It's about looking forward and understanding the impact of the choices we're making right now.
I think that's a perfect way to put it.
So to wrap things up, I just want to leave our listeners with a few thoughts. First, remember that the story of Amazon is still unfolding. They're not done yet. They're still evolving and innovating and expanding. So stay informed, stay engaged, pay attention to how Amazon is impacting your world, ask questions, do your research, and make informed choices about, well, how you interact with them.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Amazon. I hope you learned some stuff, maybe had some of your own aha moments. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.